Okay.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people here are probably already in the Smith Finance group. Group me on our newsletter, things like that. So hopefully you guys are getting updated with the events that we're having going on. But basically, this is kind of the kickoff to our semester and our speaker series. So this semester, instead of doing the kind of typical IB education section that we've done in previous semesters, we wanted to kind of offer a new opportunity to students. So we're having a speaker series with different UMD alums, some older students, come in, talk about banking, talk about careers in finance. So hopefully this will be a great start. And, we're really excited to have Elevate with us today, and should be a pretty good session. So great to see so many faces.
Yeah, likewise. So thanks guys, Ethan and Zach and Braden and team for having me here. Really excited to come back. Obviously we'd love to have done this in College Park, but here we are. Yeah, like this session is for you all. I'm going to cover a lot, right? I want to cover, I think this is my maybe 13th or 14th of these this semester itself. And then we've done probably over 100 of these over the last few years across all these universities. So we definitely want to cover a lot for everyone so they get the most out of it. This is going to cover everywhere from sort of the career mindset, specific recruiting, advice and the whole process, interviews, finance careers as a whole, kind of what you need to be doing at every single step of the way, and how do you think about your career in the long term, right? So we're going to cover all those topics in a very structured kind of way. But as always, if anyone has any questions, it's a great opportunity. Look, I'm not here in a recruiting capacity. A lot of the people that you might be speaking to this semester may or will be in recruiting capacities. So what I mean by that is that I will be back in recruiting capacity, I'm sure, in other things, but use this as a way to learn. But with any professional, use these really as an opportunity to network, right? I think it's just so important. I wish people had told me, right? It's just, when there's 30, 50, 60 people in the audience, the speakers may remember like 3 to 4 people, right? So it's usually people that take an active role, ask good questions, or engage in things. And you don't have to do this, right? It's to each his own. But my advice generally is with Zoom, it's always harder to connect and establish, relationships and rapport with people. So I recommend for all of your speaker series, and we have some terrific alums from UMD on at different great firms, just try to establish sort of that connectivity with people. And I think that'll go a long way. So let's start with, I will start with sort of a few slides that I have, but y'all can definitely stop me and sort of go. And can you see this, guys? Ethan, can you see this? Okay, amazing. So I'm going to focus on business careers or finance careers, but obviously there's other careers, right, in the business world. And so I'll give you a little bit of a framework on how to think about it. So quick background, like I said, I actually went to Maryland, and I went to business school. So I'll give you more context. So first an immigrant, moved to this country when I was 10, grew up in Rockville, Maryland, went to a high school there, and went to Maryland. I didn't actually even get into business school because I didn't apply to the business school. I was in the engineering school for my first year and a half. And then I sort of just wasn't loving it. Like I wasn't kind of feeling it. And so I decided to take a couple of engineering classes, and that summer, so I switched that spring of my second year. So a lot of you who are recruiting for banking, so me in your shoes, second semester of my sophomore year, didn't even have a major. So I had to apply to get into Smith. And then I realized I was woefully behind because I didn't have any Smith classes. So I spent the entirety of my summer not getting an internship, but taking community college classes at Montgomery College to sort of get up to speed on my education, because like I had to take all my accounting classes and all this stuff because I was like really behind. So my point in kind of saying that is that, okay, and then I scratched and clawed and found a way where I basically had to pay for parts of school. And so I got an internship at BNP Paribas, which is an investment bank in New York, but they had this like mortgage-backed trading desk in McLean, Virginia. So I had to drive from College Park. This is pre-COVID, so traffic on 495 was not good. So I think I had to drive every morning 6 a.m. to go to McLean Tyson's, because it was all about FaceTime culture, right? Pre-COVID, and so to do that, so it was kind of like that was sort of the thing. Then I graduated when I was graduating, it was a financial crisis, and so the bank that I thought I was going to go into at BNP, like they didn't have a return offer for me, so I had to go into consulting. So I actually started out at Deloitte and then worked my way into finance. I just want to give you guys a little bit of context and the fact that like we all have, challenges. We all have things that we overcome, but it's never like, it never matters what you had to overcome, as long as you sort of achieve things and then can kind of build off of that. So the number one lesson learned I will tell you is, no matter where you are in whatever situation it is, you go to a non-target school, or these banks don't come on campus, or this or that, or doesn't, the only way it is go up, right? So you have to sort of put yourself in those positions to be successful, regardless of where you are. And that is what's going to differentiate you in life, in your career, not just in the recruiting process. So anyway, so my second part of my career journey starts post when I went to business school. I was very fortunate. I got an offer at Goldman Sachs in our investment banking group, and sort of that took my career on a different trajectory. And I think that's been something that I can also talk about how to can accelerate. So I spent my first few years, couple years at Goldman in our investment banking group. And there I ended up getting a chance to lead 3 of the largest deals that we worked on at Goldman in financial services. So I led the largest IPO since Facebook of Synchrony. I led the largest split off M&A deal, and then the largest actual M&A deal when we divested G Capital. So I was the lead associate in all 3 of those things. Then I actually, like a lot of people do, wanted to leave banking and go into the buy side. And so I actually got an opportunity to join Goldman's own private equity fund, which is a mega fund, sort of large cap buyout fund within GS. It's about $100 billion of AUM. So I was vice president. I started as an associate, made vice president principal there, leading transactions in financial services, fintech, et cetera. Then after 6 years at Goldman, I was sort of ready to do something more entrepreneurial. So I joined another fund as a director. It's a $15 billion fund, Vorde Partners, to help build their global PE business. I think in all of this, right, couple things I'll point to is, number one, like, get good experience early in your career. No matter what firm you go to, no matter what fund, or no matter what bank or whatever you go to, really important to start getting good transaction, deal, project experiences early on in your career. Number two, take on leadership roles, right? So Zach and Ethan and their counterparts before them, and Vasmi and, Keith and all of these folks, I think one of the things that differentiates them once they go into their careers is, hey, I was president of this club, or I was on the board of this club, or whatever. Those things actually really matter, not just in interviews, but also kind of in your career of the leadership things that you do, in addition to building all the leadership skills that you don't get to do. So for me, a lot of that, I was actually asked to be chief of staff within Goldman's investment banking group and our FIG group. And what that meant was a lot of recruiting, a lot of, hiring, a lot of sort of, summer analyst recruiting, summer analyst promotions, and so on and so forth. So really training development for junior bankers, et cetera. So folks have questions on this, I'm happy to come back to it. But I think the other reason why we're here, I started Elevate in 2019 to see if we can build a network of professionals in private equity, banking, hedge funds, venture capital, growth equity, fintech. And in 2 years, we've sort of expanded now to be partnered with the top 30 universities, about 100 clubs, the top 12 MBAs. And we probably see, 10 to 20,000 people every year, and kind of impact, 4 or 5 times that overall. And so within that, we have a networking platform, we have an educational platform, we have a recruitment platform, and then an investment platform. Again, you guys, I'm sure will see a lot of it if you're new, in terms of all the upcoming events and stuff. So these are just examples of firms that we've been able to, and professionals we've had on the platform, just examples of stuff. By the way, as a partner club, SFG does get access to all these events and so on. So I think that's a huge benefit of you all being involved in SFG. Upcoming stuff, we're having an MBA forum next Friday, private equity forum, a diversity conference with sort of women who are kind of went through the summer process at Goldman, Morgan, some of these firms, venture capital forum, and also firm specific stuff. So anyway, whoops. All right, so let me start with finding the right field in business for everyone. And by the way, I really don't want this to be like a one-way street. I'm happy to speak for an hour. I can speak for whatever, 3 hours. But I do want you all to ask questions. And so, one thing I forgot to say, I will add this in the chat, but I think you guys should definitely try to see if you can get access to some of these things. And the one thing I really like that I want to point you to is this academy. Can you see this, Ethan? So basically, we want to democratize access to information, okay? Because this is something I did not have growing up through the industry. So if anyone wants to learn about firms, because you're like, oh, this firm does not come on campus, or this firm I don't really know about, you can really go on this and sort of say, hey, I really want to learn about Stifel. I know this is working. Actually, it's not working. So you can go and you can see Keith on, and he'll be talking about Stifel and whatever. So the point is, it's an opportunity for you all to learn about a lot of these firms without having to sort of network at 100 different firms, right? So we wanted to build this sort of database. It has about 500 free videos you all can access. But anyway, that's just one thing I want to preview. And then the events thing, which I'll point to in a second. So let's go back to the presentation. By the way, are there any questions that people have before we keep rolling through the presentation? Let me share one other thing. So this is the Wharton MBA and Blackstone and GS and all those people next week. So you can sign up. I think before it hits capacity, you can try to sign up for it. And then there's other stuff on the website as well. All right, let's keep moving then if there's no questions. All right. So finding the right field in finance for you. So look, I know a lot of y'all are thinking about different careers, and this is by no means the only set of careers that everyone should get into. The first thing I'll say on career is try to go through a good amount of self-exploration before you sort of end up thinking, oh, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Nobody's going to do anything for the rest of their life. You know, it's just really hard when you're 22, 23 or 21 or whatever to say that, to make that statement. But the reality of life or careers are you need to go build experiences, right? You need to, one, understand what these careers are like. And then number two, understand if that's the right career for you. Because I'll say this and I'll say this again towards the end of this, but your goal in your career is not to do something because, you know, somebody else thinks, oh my God, this person works at, you know, Goldman, or this person works at whatever. It's to do something which you are going to become the best at, right? I want that to sink in. Again, that may not be apparent to you when you're 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. In fact, I'll speak at all my business schools and say the exact same point, is that you really, I think the best professionals that I've seen, be it investors, be it bankers, be it operators, are the ones that become really good at something and then are becoming sort of the best at it. So you kind of think about all the people that get promoted to partners at all these firms. They are because they are a really good investor, or they're the best fintech investor at that firm, or in that capacity. So the reason I say that is time is also important, right? So if you really, really want to do investing, or if you really, really want to do advisory, you should gather a lot of experiences, either as internships or whatever, and sort of work towards that goal. Another example, right? If you want to work in healthcare and that's all you want to do, or you sort of identify that, why would you go take an investment banking, internship in like industrials or something else when you know you kind of want to do that? Then you're sort of just, even though it's a great firm, it's all a trade-off, but you might be, wasting 2 years of your career going and joining in a FIG group when all it is that you want to do healthcare. So my point is, try to really early in college or through your career, develop a good understanding of what is that you are really passionate about. What are you really good at? A lot of my PE people, they blindly go into PE. They just say, oh, after banking, I go into private equity. But then I'm like, well, do you actually like diligence? Do you like spending 2 months on just one company and kind of ripping it to shreds? Then if that doesn't sound interesting, then don't go into private equity, no matter how great it sounds, because you're just wasting 2 years of your life when you're sort of just going down this path because everybody else is going down the path. That's maybe the first thing I'll say. So my takeaway on this slide is, before we even jump in, try to develop a self introspection on kind of what are the things that are interesting to you. Number two, what are these careers? So probably the most popular career that people, at these finance clubs want us to talk about is investment banking. Crux of the job, right, is advisory and execution of transactions. So as an analyst, you're working on complex projects and deals and, transactions that you're basically supporting the team. So you might be doing financial analysis, Excel analysis, PowerPoint, whatever. And that's the skill set that you're building. The skill set you're also building is not just a financial skill set, but also understanding of companies, understanding of industries, operations, how kind of the capital markets work, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of an interesting place to start your career. Then moving forward, as you go through the career, right, if you stay on as an associate or VP, it becomes more about execution of deals and about client relationships. Then the next career that a lot of people are interested in is private investing. So this is kind of what I think about. It is this private equity or private credit. The crux of the job is basically an owner. So you're not an advisor, right? Banking, you're an advisor. In private equity or private credit, you're an owner. So your job has to be to find interesting or, source and also diligence interesting ideas that the firm can invest into, right? So you think about what skill set that requires kind of a lot of financial analysis skill set, but also requires understanding of sort of business operations, or, how companies make money, how do the kind of go to market strategies work, what is sort of the dynamics around running a successful business. So that's my point, in the sense that you're focusing not just on financial, you're also focusing on operational skill sets in private equity and to a lesser extent private credit. Growth equity is another area of venture capital a lot of people are interested in. Again, this is still private investing, but this is investing in a non-majority and earlier stage company. So like investing in a company that's Series A or Series B or Series C or Series D, like you were going to invest in Uber, right, in 2010 versus investing in, I don't know, like, a company that's post all of its fundraising, and it sort of has all this established cash flows, and sort of you can put a lot of debt on it and put it in an LBO. Again, if folks have questions, I can go back and answer that. I'd say at the junior level, growth equity tends to be a lot of sourcing. So if you go into that, make sure you sort of understand what you're getting yourself into. Public investing, another area where a lot of people are interested in. Again, this is sort of hedge funds. And the key here is, I'm sure a lot of the investing you guys are doing at SFG and other funds, crux of the job is finding an edge when things are public, right? So there's a lot of data components here. You have to sort of understand things from a public dynamic, right, versus a private dynamic. It's just different. And then finally, consulting, right? I started my career out in consulting. It's an interesting, it's also a really good place to think about, and maybe where there's a lot of options, right? For you guys coming out of Maryland, where there's a lot of consulting firms that come on campus. So it really helps you build like a threshold of sort of what is advisory, what is client work like, and then you can kind of translate that and do other things. All right, I will keep going, right? If there's sort of no questions. Where is my screen? Okay. Can you still see my screen? Hang on. Nope. Sorry guys, technical difficulty. Window. Okay, I think it. All right, so we'll keep going. Any luck? Okay. All right. So the next question I get we do these sessions is, what is the journey that I should be on, right? And I think, again, there's no prescribed journey. We're all sort of where we are. So I wouldn't spend as much time looking in the past and saying, oh, I missed this boat, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that. But if you are looking to sort of think about getting into careers in finance or business, I would start wherever you are, right? That's the earliest point you can start. And I would really invest in career exploration and continue to do well at your university, because that's table stakes. And then really start combining that career exploration with networking. What do I mean by networking? So there's kind of a formal networking process that some of our sophomores and juniors are going through now in order to secure a summer internship for like next summer, which sort of entails like you reaching out to a lot of different firms, establishing relationships with maybe UMD alums there. Most firms, I don't think UMD actually is as prominent at every single firm still. I know GS, historically, we've had a few people from UMD. I think, one of the VPs in TNT is a GS alum. I'm sorry, is a UMD alum. And then some of the other folks, so it just depends on the firm. You can check with the team here on sort of what firms have alumni right now. But I think just starting off with the alums is a good place to start. You effectively want to make sure you're sort of get involved in these firms in their processes so that you be considered for a job. Okay, so that's sort of the point with networking, and then it's about experience building, right? So how do you get internships for your summers that allow you to get those jobs or sort of get those roles? I'm not going to get into as much of the other stuff here. I will pause again for questions. Any questions that people have, like why are you guys here? Maybe like someone tell me like what you're looking to get out of this session, so that I also try to like cater my advice to it, because there's a lot. We can continue going, but yeah. Okay, cool. Ucha, thank you for raising your hand. What's up?
Hi, Kaushik. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Welcome.
So I'm like a junior right now. Like I'm going into my senior year, but I have an internship at Morgan Stanley, but it's in their finance division. So is there like any way to transition to their IBD division?
Okay, so good question. I think great. Congrats on the internship. I think it's look. I think first we have to acknowledge that it's a great job, great firm, right? To kind of go into. Look, I think. Ping me afterwards and I'll maybe give you a few more strategies. But I think generally, right, figure out why you want to do it, right? I think the number one question you're going to ask, like, why are you going into this versus that. And then the next question I'm going to ask, okay, like, tell me why you think you're going to be a good banker, right? As an analyst. And then you have to go in and say, hey, look, I understand the markets. I understand these things. I've done this type of financial analysis. This is what I'm doing at SFG. This is what I'm doing here. You sort of have to convince them. They'll be like, okay, what industries are you following, et cetera. So you're going to have to build a case, right, for kind of what it is. Whether it's a specific firm, look, every firm internally is just different, right? So MS or any of these firms, they are probably going to, and this is my honest advice, and this is not an MS specific thing, this is for every firm. If you think about their summer offers, any bank, I would say they are looking to convert somewhere between 60 to 75% of their summer analyst class, right, to kind of full-time roles. So that probably leaves what, 5 to 10 to 15 spots nationally, right, for investment banking. Quite honestly, I think given if it's a top 4, top 5 bulge bracket, they're probably going to recruit other banks, investment banking summer analysts. I think that would sort of be their next priority in some sense. So if you're able to develop good relationships with anyone in investment banking, you can get into that process. But I think your odds are not going to improve just because you were in finance, the group or something like that. In fact, I think you would be competing against others who've interned for the summer. At that point, it's no longer a Maryland thing, right? It's sort of a national thing, right? So you'll be competing against every person that's out there. So if you do want to get into investment banking, my advice for you is starting today, network your ass off between now until when you start, such that you've built a good amount of relationships, such that when your summer internship is going well, you can reach out and say, hey, if you're looking for someone to join full-time, I am your guy. So you got to figure out, you know what I mean? But sure, like, if you really want to go work at a brand name firm, but do some other function, or you're open to get into finance or investment banking, but doing it at a middle market or upper middle market firm, is that okay, right? So there's like a trade-off. Obviously, the ideal scenario is you go and join MSIB, but I don't know that the probability of that might be, for anyone on this call, might be sub 10%, just because how random the recruiting process is. So my point to you is you got to make a determination if you're okay with just going to banking wherever you want to go, making a case for why, and then reach out to every single alumni you can get your hands on between now and your summer and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm interested in banking. I've been very fortunate. I got an offer at Morgan Stanley, the finance group. Why I'm really excited about that. I am looking to do X, Y, and Z kind of full time. And that's my goal. Like, you're a junior. I told this on one of the calls that Braden was on a couple of weeks ago. I think it was with TPG or some other firm that we had on. Someone asked a question like, oh, I'm a junior. Like, do I have any chance? This is not the question you're asking, so I'm not gonna be on the spot, but there's something like, do I have a chance of like getting into something when I'm graduate? I'm like, or should I go to grad school? That was the question, I think. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, even if you were a senior and only had 6 months, I would say, don't close the door. But if you're a junior, it's still in your power. You have 18 months, right, effectively, to when you graduate. So make that a goal of yours. Again, if that is a goal, I'm just reacting to your question. If that is a goal of yours, let's get going. Make sort of an expansive list. If you reach out to 200 people, guarantee you'll get 10 interviews, right? And then it's about making the most of those interviews. So, I mean, I don't know. So I think my view here, hopefully this is helpful. I'm trying to sort of, I'm trying to like break this down in 2 different ways. So yes, absolutely. Put your hat in the ring at MS and see what happens. Realistically, I think anyone's chances, especially coming from non-IBD, is sub 10% or sub 5%. So don't put your eggs in that basket. You get a return offer and put that as sort of something you can, as a plan B, right? If all else fails, you can go there. You're in a great position. I don't know why, don't freak out about this. You have a great plan A, plan B, and then get after your plan A. You have 18 months to execute on a plan A, and I think it'll work, right? So that's my view, right? Is that helpful?
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, of course. Good question. Thank you for asking that one. So let's keep it moving. If there's no other questions, I'm going to keep going through the slides. 1 second.
Actually, I had a question real quick, if you don't mind.
Yes. I would prefer to take questions, so go for it.
Okay. Yeah, so first of all, thanks for taking the time again to meet with us. And I guess, so I'm kind of wanted to respond to your question about like where I specifically am in this kind of timeline. So I'm a sophomore, and I've had a couple internships, not necessarily like in investment banking, under my belt, and I'm looking for like a way to like break through and like start networking for these kind of like bigger companies or like private equity firms or like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Can you be more specific? Like, what do you mean a way to break into networking? Like, what help me help you, like, help me understand, like, what do you mean by, like, are you saying like, where do I start?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, fine. So, okay. Okay, what is networking, right? It's a great question. Jack, thank you for asking that question. Oh yeah, someone messaged me. You can private message me, which is what this person did. But if you have a question, I'm sure other people in the group have it. So, other resources. So I'm going to share two resources here. This is our LinkedIn and our social media thing. So we put, I think there's videos on there you can access. So that's the resources. I will share the resource to the events again at the end of it if you guys want access to that. But this is another way to sort of get access to resources. Jack's question is something I'm sure everyone's faces, and everyone faces throughout their career. Okay, so like, you know, network and network capital is the most important capital. And I always call it network capital because that's what it is, right? It's sort of it's, you know, when you were removed from Maryland by a couple of years, your relationships with the Maryland ecosystem is going to drop, right? It's just natural in life. Just like in high school, you were very close. And now you probably see 5 people in high school. I don't know, right? So whatever. So my point is that just diminishes over time. And same thing for me with my business school, same thing for me with other places. But where you can really overcome that is by building a personal professional network of individuals that are branded to Jack, not branded to Maryland, not branded to Chicago, not branded to Goldman, not branded to these things, but they're branded to Jack, right? So that's how I want you to think about it. So these are your relationships. I want you guys to build, not starting now, throughout your career. Okay. So this is not just going to take you to banking and then you're going to just like move on. And if that's fine, some people do that. It's sort of a lost opportunity. So, well, that's on networking. Let's get to sort of why are you networking and what is the point of networking? Networking is just a fancy word for like getting people to know who you are. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of saying like, who is Jack? If I get 30 resumes from Maryland, right? Or 50 resumes, 100 resumes from Maryland, like how do I know Jack from, you know, Lily from Tushar, from Aiden, I'm just looking at the faces, to Ethan, right? How do I know? And you all have great resumes. I'm, you know, SFG, I'm 3 point whatever, I'm this major, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. So one practical reason why I want you to network is then you talk to a firm and they say, you know what? I'm on the Maryland team. I've spoken to Jack, I've spoken to, you know, Ethan, and I've spoken to Lily. I think they're all fantastic. Versus I've spoken to, you know, this person, as on resume, it looks good, but I haven't had a chance to connect. Maybe we'll make the offer to connect, but maybe we'll be like, you know what, forget it. I like these 3 people. Let's include them in the process. So there's sort of that immediate tangible benefit of sort of getting that network going. The more intangible benefit of building a network is that, like, even if you don't end up at your #1 job this summer, okay, or next summer or whatever, guess where the first place you can go after your sophomore year or junior or summer internship? People you've networked with and said, hey, we went through the process. You're a Credit Suisse. I've kind of met a few more people at CS. If you guys are interviewing for laterals, I've been working at this, you know, DC based firm this summer. And I think I've really like picked up a liking for investment banking and blah, blah, blah. So if CS is looking for analysts, I'd love to go there. So that's really hard to do when you don't know anyone. Like when you just shoot an email to someone, they're gonna be like, who is this guy? I've never even seen him before. Why would I recommend him, right? So my point is, like, building this thing over your career, again, becomes important because you just never know. Third reason why I think you should network, obviously, I mean, you all know why you should network. I'm trying to give you practical reasons for why you should be networking. And the third is that, like, those lead to other opportunities. So they'll say, oh, you know, Credit Suisse is not looking, or healthcare isn't looking, but I know industrials is looking. So I think, you know, there's sort of that vein as well. So let's talk about the practical reality of how you actually network. It's hard. So, you know, what does a college student have to offer to a associate or an analyst in investment bank, right? Maybe nothing. I don't know, maybe something. So when recruiting season is going on, there's sort of 2 pathways here. When recruiting season is going on, AKA right now, you have a higher threshold for bankers to not feel like they're getting like harassed by students, because now they're sort of looking for candidates. So now is a great time to network, right? So you just reach out to CS alums, or I'm just throwing CS, but GS, or, you know, Rain Group, or, you know, Catalyst or Evercore. Some of these processes are already done. But my point is, like, you know, you can reach out to them and say, hey, you know, I know you guys are going through recruiting right now. You know, I know you're to Maryland, or I know you're from the DC area. You know, I go to Maryland. I'm part of Smith's Finance Club. I'm really, really interested in kind of this elite boutique for X, Y, and Z reasons. At Smith, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I also like really appreciate that you're working in healthcare. That's an industry I'm really interested in. If you just have 5 minutes, I'd love to get on the phone and just hear about your experience there. Blah, blah, blah. So, and you should be sending out 50 of those, 100 of those, right? And not all at once, but I think you should be sending them out like every week, like 4 to 5 of those, such that you start with the funnel of 100 people. And I don't even know that we have 100 chirps on Wall Street. But I think, let me just say, like, whatever number we have, you start out with that. And guess what? Now that I've told you, now everyone's going to do this, right? I think you have to sort of start doing this, and don't just do all of the bulge bracket banks. Do like, upper middle market banks, right? Do local banks, like just get a foot in the door, right? Just, so your first point was, which I want to circle back to, is I don't have investment banking internships yet. I'm a sophomore. So maybe you start including in that list, 40% of that list should be investment banks in the DC area, or if you're from Baltimore or whatever, like wherever you guys are from, those areas, and making connections to those people and say, hey, I'm an SFG, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I would love to kind of discuss. And if you guys have any internship options, I'd love to sort of, be a part of that as well. Figure out what works for you. You know what I mean? Not everything's going to work for everyone. You're also going to have to get okay with rejection. Okay. So I know a lot of people like hesitate to even recruit or network because they're afraid of, 70% of the email getting non-responded to. That's market standard. When you're in PE, you may not even respond to 70% of bankers sending you emails, right? So my point is, that's life, right? When you're an entrepreneur, 70% of your VCs don't email you back, right? When you are, when you're in VC, 70% of your LPs don't email you back, right? So my point is, this is life, right? So let's just get used to rejection. But the way you maximize rejection or minimize rejection is by having a large enough pool, right? So if you reach out to 10 people, four or five read your email, 3 respond, 2 let's get on a Zoom, and then 1 gets a Zoom, versus reaching out to 100 people, 10, 50 read your email, 10 respond, 5, there's just the numbers just sort of like, are more in your favor, right? So that's the outreach philosophy. The philosophy I have about messaging is give them a reason to respond to you. If they're a Maryland alum, right? Great place. It's like a warm connection. Hey, I'm a leader in SFG, or I'm a student in SFG. I've been doing these majors, etc. I noticed you are in like the Maryland flag football team, or blah, blah, blah that I'm doing, or whatever, some personal connection, or you were in this fraternity, or you were in this, whatever, sorority or finance club, or, golf club, or whatever. Establish connections, or not, maybe there's no connection. I think Maryland is a strong enough connection, and you just say, hey, look, I really like, admire kind of what you've been working on in your, breaking in and kind of succeeding here. Investment banking is something I'm super interested and excited about. This is all the things I've been working on. I'm part of SFG. I'm worked at X, Y, and Z internships. I've been doing all this other stuff. And so, if you have 5 minutes, I'd love to get on the phone. So your messaging needs to make it such that, okay, cool. Jack is like someone I want to spend 10 minutes with on a Zoom and give him my advice or kind of connect with. That's like building blocks, right? You're just not going to get on the phone and then be like, here's an offer letter, right? That's not what happens, right? You have to get on the phone and build those relationships. And then that leads to you being close to the team and say, hey, if there's other people at Goldman that are Maryland, alums, can I connect with them? And that could be yes or no, maybe whatever. Or here's my resume, I'd love to kind of keep it in touch with, or, hey, your advice was really great. I'd love to stay in touch with you and keep you updated on how the recruiting process goes. So there's so many ways you can build relationships, right? On and off the call. And part of that is take good notes. Like when you get on the phone, make sure you write down everything they talk about, so that after the call, you can email and say, hey, I really appreciate your advice around, doing X, Y, and Z for your summer, or taking a leadership role in investment committee, or whatever. I'm going to incorporate that into sort of how I go through the recruiting process. And I would love to keep you, in touch with how it's going on. So just start like giving them these like, breadcrumbs that you can establish like career-long relationships with, but also be thankful of their time and all that stuff. So there's so many things, and I understand, Jack, your question. There's so many things that go into networking. It's not just you sending the perfect email. It's sending it to the perfect person. It's sending it at the perfect time. It's like having a good networking conversation. It's like having a good resume. So it's hard. This is hard, but guess what? If we put work into it, you will get better at it, and you will get to accomplish your goals. If there was, all you had to do to get some of these jobs was just, apply and then you get a job, there wouldn't be this supply demand imbalance. There wouldn't be this sort of like fighting to get something that you want to be a part, you want to kind of get and accomplish your goals. And that's sort of life, right? If everything was really easy, then it's not as interesting anymore to people, right? I guess. So I think, so that's the reality of life. So don't battle the fact that you have to network. So don't let that inhibit you. Try to position it like, how can I network better? How can I network in a more effective manner? So people always get pissed and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe there's so much networking I need to do to get a job. I'm like, well, that's life. Like that's the industry, right? Are you gonna sit here and complain about that? Or are you gonna like go do something about it, right? So I think, I don't know, that's my views. And look, I haven't always been a good networker. I still continue to do that. I think the best advice I got was from my partner at GS my first year. I was so focused, and I've said this story before, I think maybe on the last, maybe it was one of the sessions we had, either the GS one or one of the other ones. One of my partners, like, I was so focused my first year in banking to be top bucket and do a really good job. And obviously coming from non-target, you have this like additional chip on your shoulder. So I was like just at my desk the whole time, and I didn't really like establish any relationship. And my partner came and said, yeah, you accomplished your goal of performing really well your first year, but how is your sort of Goldman network going? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know anyone, you know what I mean? I've just been trying to do a good job at my desk. Like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, Kaushik, like, that's a wasted opportunity, right? Like, this firm has tremendous people that, you could be getting, they'll all be future colleagues or future investors and so on. I was like, oh, wow, this guy's right. I've just been so focused on like building my own personal brand as a professional that I haven't focused on. So starting my second year, I went like hardcore networking mode, and that's what's helped me so much in my career, right? So I'm kind of giving you guys my own mistakes and things I would do differently. But yeah, again, look, networking is a career-long thing. It's sort of something you build, but do what's natural to you, right? Like, if Zoom you don't like and you like phone calls, I mean, do a phone call, right? If you like prefer LinkedIn messaging versus email, or if you prefer to sort of not go out to 100 people, but go out to 25, but make it really, really targeted, sure. Like, whatever works for you and whatever's working. Don't try to do it just because like I've told you to do it, but kind of find the things that work for you. But it's sort of, anyway, I'll pause there. Is this helpful? I was sort of a long-winded answer, but I think it's important because I'm sure everyone here is going through that same like challenge. And so I think it's just it's a life skill that I want to make sure you guys have. So Jack, is that helpful?
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let me go through a few more slides here, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Okay, so I shared the resources already. I'll share some more stuff in a second. So recruiting key principles. I'll try to zoom through these. I mean, I already talk pretty fast, but I'll try to talk a little bit faster even, I suppose. So I think the 5 key things in recruiting, I already talked about this. The university you go to, some of your universities like Stifel and some of these other banks will have specific recruiting teams, some won't. So it's like, how do you find the relationships at firms that don't come on campus? Academic performance, I think that's table stakes, like I said. Internship experience, like Jack just said. It's about building a story, right? I worked in a startup that taught me about sort of technology, and sort of we were venture funded. So I got to learn about how venture capital and sort of capital inflows help this company grow. And so I want to go into banking because I want to facilitate those type of transactions. So just having a story for why you want to do the things you're doing, important, and building up the experiences. You're all not going to have like stellar, I interned at Citadel my freshman year, like that just doesn't happen. So you're going to have to sort of build it up. And that's sort of the cool challenge of it. Like I said, networking, I think I've kind of beaten that horse. So I think like just doing it and doing it effectively. Interviewing is important, right? I would treat any conversation as an interview, even if it's a networking call, because you're just sort of making a good impression. What are firms looking for? I mean, I'm happy to, Zach and Ethan, happy to share this slides if people want after the session. But like I think we polled like 2-3 dozen bankers who are on different recruiting teams. We're like, what are you guys looking for? It's a combination of these 8 things, right? It's not that complicated. The complicated part is how do you prove it, right? So analytical ability, technical, quantitative exposure, teamwork. We ask a lot of questions around this. Leadership, ask a lot of questions around this. Character, interest in finance, interest in markets, curiosity about businesses, and communication skills. So this is 9 things. How do you prove it? You prove it through a combination of class experience. So things like technical, quantitative, you say, hey, I'm taking this major, I'm doing this. Number 2, you prove it through school. So leadership, hey, I'm part of SFG, and we had to kind of launch this new platform this spring on speaker series, and this is kind of what I did to do that. Blah blah blah. These are the challenges. This is kind of way to overcome. Blah blah blah. That's an interesting sort of thing to think about. Leadership drive. Hey, I've been a swimmer all my life, and I dedicated 4 hours a day to swimming in high school to kind of become sort of state level swimmer. Great. Again, they all don't have to be finance stuff. They just have to be things that I'm like, okay, cool. This person is someone we want on our team. Character, really, really important. If you have an interview with me, I'll probably ask you this 4 different ways, right? What are your weaknesses? What are your failures? What are some challenges you've had? We just want people who are self-aware and can learn and grow. So anyone comes in and says, oh, my weakness is something super small, I'm gonna be like, well, like there's no room to grow here because this person's not even acknowledging their weaknesses, right? So I think that's important. Interest in finance. Again, this is again something you can control, right? Go subscribe to Dealbook every day and read Dealbook, and be aware of what's going on in the markets. SFG has a lot of great initiatives where you can track deals and blah blah blah. So I think get involved in that so you can start speaking the language. That's the other thing, right? Maryland has a great finance program, but you have to supplement that with your own knowledge so that someone comes in and asks, what deals are you following? And you're like, oh, I don't know. And you cite a deal that was from 6 months ago. Like, that's not going to work, right? So I think you're going to have to sort of demonstrate your interest in the industry and the markets. Curiosity about businesses, less so for banking, more so in PE. Communication skills, I think that goes without saying. Resume building, I also hit on this a lot. Just stack your resume, like just ladder your resume. Go do something, then go do something else. I will say this on resumes. I think, look, we get 300 resumes from any given school. We probably spend 30 seconds to 45 seconds on a resume. So make it good. Don't have 1,000 experiences on there. Make it like 3 or 4 experiences. Left side, my eyesight goes to the left side, build financial model, led X, Y, and Z deal team, did da, da, da. And I think that's important to me. So I'm going to kind of go through that on the resume side. Networking, I already talked about this. To me, it's outreach, it's in the communication, and it's in the actual meeting. So you guys, Jack, I think I did this ad nauseum on your question, but what is your outreach? Let's have a really thorough outreach method. Let's make that communication really, really good, right? And sort of make you want me to respond, make me want to respond to you. And then the actual meeting, make that also really good. So that's what networking is all about. Interviews, I think, behavioral and fit. So these are the most common interview questions. Again, you have a PDF with this, but how do you answer the question is important. So my suggestion, right? So these questions are things like, tell me about yourself, 90-second story or pitch, or hang on, I'm getting some like background noise. 1 second. Let me just mute people. Oh, okay, cool. I think it's gone. Okay. Sorry. Sorry guys, we have 2 monitors here and always like throws me off. Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. Yeah, if you guys can just go on mute, I would love if you guys can ask questions, but just to be cognizant of the audience. I think what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Comes up so many times. So really, really important. What are you most proud of? Again, these are all just interview questions. The key here is the last point here, which is, can you guys have 5 or 6 poignant stories with like multiple layers of depth in them that kind of tell us about who you are and that sort of help us understand why you're a good fit for the role. So obviously a technical skill set here as well. I'm sure the SFG is going to, prepare you well for that piece as well. But again, it's sort of part of the process. Perspectives on hire views. I may not spend time on this here. Technicals, I don't know that we have time, but PE, okay, let me pause this stuff. Okay, let me pause again for any questions. I think we obviously we have like 7 or 8 minutes. So I do want to open it up. Again, I've said a lot, I try to cover a lot of things, but at the same time, this is for you guys, right? So let me know as folks have questions on this. Okay, 2 questions. All right, I will take them. One thing, my team has asked me to ask you guys, 3 questions, amazing. I'm gonna share a testimonial link. If you can just, I request, I guess, you guys, as we're building on Elevate, if you learned stuff today, just fill out a testimonial for us at the link here. You can just say, hey, I came to the investment banking private equity workshop or whatever. And obviously, just takes like 10 seconds. So just fill out a 5-star testimonial. This is the link. Again, if you didn't learn anything, don't feel pressure to do it. But I think if anyone felt like they got out of it, I would, my team would appreciate, and I would appreciate you guys doing that. Okay. So, okay, let's keep going through these questions. Who's next? I think Tushar, I saw your hand up first.
Hey, Kaushik, thanks so much for doing this. So my question was I'm a freshman and I'm trying to I have an interest in investment banking. And I noticed in your flow chart of career progression and how you should plan, freshman year, just go on career exploration, try to start your network. And I saw try to get that first year internship. And now my question is with a lack of experience, just being a freshman, what's your advice on pursuing those internships? And like,
I
what
mean,
could they be?
Yeah, so there's two perspectives on this. Number one, there's just a certain opportunities that are not going to be available to you, right? So like the large 15 to 20 investment banks don't take freshmen, let alone sophomore, like don't take a lot of sophomores, let alone freshmen. So I think you have to level set a little bit. But look, I think it's all in your control, right? So you figure out what you can do well. Okay, that's what I would lead with, right? I can help you. It's like the chicken or the egg. Oh, which internship should I get first? And then like what, I have nothing to prove, right? Or whatever. But I think in your case, it's not true, right? Go back in your experiences. What are the things that you've done, right? I established this thing in high school that we grew from 0 to 100 people. So I have good business development skills, right? For instance, or I built this website, or I have this technical skill that I can kind of contribute, or I'm really, really interested in healthcare. I'm following all these industries and these markets, even though I don't have a lot of experience. I can help you research a ton of healthcare companies. I'm just giving you 3 examples. My point is, what are the things you do really well? You got to lead with that as an underclassman, right? Because people aren't going to hire you because, you're like Tushar Garg, who is, this, freshman out of Maryland who's doing like, you know what I mean? There's not much from a crude sense that you might be able to add value. So I would start with where you can start moving the needle. And also like, it could be just about going after it. So I think if you want to go into finance, write down and practice in front of a mirror why you want to go into finance. Hey, I'm really interested in investment banking because I want to be working in X, Y, and Z industries or this type of thing. And I'm also part of this largest group on campus, which is sort of our premier institution in the group. And I've looked at your firm and I really appreciate that you guys are working in the DC area and all these different things. So if there's any way I can contribute either as a school year intern or a summer intern, sign me up, right? So I think making it like, I'm ready to do whatever you need, right? I'm ready to sort of start. This is what I can add, right? This is why I'm reaching out to you. This is not me putting the same email out to 50 firms, me going and researching what, this X, Y, and Z Capital Partners does and putting together a thoughtful argument. And then this is what I can do for you guys. Certain areas where I think I can add value include, market research, include like outsourcing or sourcing opportunities, reaching out to X, Y, and Z, or like, building a database of connections in this industry, whatever it is. My point is be resourceful. You know what I mean? Figure out what you can do well, figure out where you can add value, and then just go. Let them tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. You know what I mean? Like, let them be like, oh, you don't have experience. But like, okay, cool. I'll see you next year. I'm going to build some experience and I'm going to come back next year and ask you the same question, right? So that perseverance has helped me a lot in my career. Similar with Elevate, right? When we started working with firms and stuff, I specifically didn't go through like my contacts in the industry, and I wanted to sort of build this on its own merit. And so initially they were like, what do you guys know about talent? What do you guys know, whatever? And fast forward, 2 years now, we're working with, 3 of the largest private equity firms in the world, 3 of the largest growth equity firms in the world, 2 of the largest 5 business schools in the world. So there's an element of, you have to sort of prove it to yourself and others. And it's hard. The first one's always hard. But it's not impossible. There's millions or hundreds of thousands of Maryland students or other undergrad students who've gotten those jobs, right? So I think in a lot of times in life, we put artificial pressures on ourselves to say, oh, this is why this firm could tell me no. Like, let them tell you no. You go out there and try to get it, right? So I think, so that would be my advice to Shar. So I think you'd already reached out on LinkedIn. So I can connect with you afterwards, if you have more questions. But is that helpful for just?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, that's exactly perfect. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Yeah, you're totally welcome. Okay, I think we had Aiden. What's up?
Well, thank you for setting up the time to do this. It's nice meeting you. But
Yeah.
I was kind of curious. Like, my question was kind of built off like how you were talking about like networking being one of the number one things earlier, and like you were mentioning about sending out as many emails as possible. And I was just wondering, like, can you run the risk of sending out too many emails, say like to the same company, and a lot of people in the office, like they get the same email from this college kid, and like, is that something you want to do?
Absolutely. That's a risk. So I've seen this, right? Like when and GS, like we get the same email, literally copy and paste the name. Sometimes the name's not even changed, or sometimes it's like, whatever. Again, it's tacky, but it's fine. Like I'm not gonna ding them for that, but everyone's different. Some people just throw it in the trash. There's just the supply and demand is way too much in this industry for like, a lot of people have no tolerance for mistakes, right? So I think, it's sort of, that's life. So best thing you can do is try to avoid them making mistakes, right? But it's normal. If you're doing it in the volumes that you might end up doing, you will make mistakes. That's okay. And you sort of just have, you have structures in place. Maybe you put up a, thing on Outlook or email that says, if I say attached to my resume, make sure I've attached a resume, right? Or if I say like, in name of the bank, let me re-review every single, like have a process for yourself, right? Every time before you send an email, even if it's 1 a.m. or you schedule an email to be sent at 7 a.m., whatever it is you guys are doing, like make sure you have a check process in place, that you wake up at 6:45 and make sure that all the emails are going to the right people, right? That's the other thing, right? You say, oh, you send someone an email that says, oh, I want to work at Credit Suisse, and it's to someone who works at like Morgan Stanley. And you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense, right? So I'd say whatever processes you need to have, but that's, your question is not on quality control. Your question is on something else, but that's relevant to what we're talking about. So I think you should think about that. The second relevant point on this one is yeah, I think it's sort of distasteful to sort of send 5 emails to analysts all on the same day, because one, it's saying that like, I don't care about individual people enough that I'm going to wait for you to respond. I'm just trying to get to any analyst. So any meeting that's in that email is lost. When you say, oh, hey, Kaushik, I really appreciate you came from Maryland to kind of do this, and then you just replace that email with someone else, then it's like, okay, well, you're not being ingenuous, because like, you don't appreciate that, right? You're just kind of like just trying to get to any single person. Again, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, but you could do that like in a week. And trust me, there's 5 people at 5 different firms you can reach out to in that given day, right? So have a system. It's going to take a little bit more of a toll on you to organize it. And I totally get that, but that is a little bit better, because guess what, guys, the analysts on the other side, they're sitting next to each other, right? So like, I'm sitting next to this other analyst. We're both getting the same email. We're going to laugh about it, right? So I think just be cognizant of it. It's a good question. I don't think it's wrong. I think it's sort of maybe is like a minor yellow flag, right? In terms of from me on the other side. Okay, is that helpful, Aiden?
Yeah, it certainly was. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, of course. Indicate you took the IBP. Okay, I'm gonna ask for this one more time, but you should indicate where you took the workshop also, or that you took this workshop. Okay, Colby Corson.
Hey, Kaushik, thanks again for all your time.
Your name is familiar. I think you were at one of the events like a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I've been to most of them when I can kind of get around with my class schedule.
Okay.
So it's definitely been super helpful.
Got
But
it.
so I was just kind of curious. My main goal is really to break into private equity. I actually just completed a first round at KKR, so kind of hoping to see where that will go. But really, where I'm just curious about is when taking just the traditional path to banking. How is it really important, in your opinion, to be transparent that you're recruiting, or kind of stay behind the scenes as most people kind of say to do?
What do you mean recruiting and banking? What does that mean? Sorry.
No, so when you get into banking and you start recruiting for the buy side, because I know that starts within like the first 6 months.
Yeah.
But I know I've talked to people where they say it's like you be transparent kind of with your associates that you're recruiting out of the bank, or many people are kind of like they just keep it.
I mean, like, okay, so I wouldn't, unless you're like best friends with your associate or something. So like, look, I'm not saying like this is an interesting question. Like you don't need to lie, right? There's no reason to sort of do that. But at the same time, right? Think about yourself in a position where you have a day job, right? You're working from, 9 to 8 or something. And then you're sort of taking out 6-7 hours in a day to go do these meetings. I mean, I think it's a little bit like, I think senior people would get pissed, you know what I mean? Or they do get pissed. So I think the better approach is, yeah, if you have an associate that says, hey, usually it all starts with the series of dental appointments and doctor's appointments, and then sort of people start realizing what's going on. And so, I think, look, I don't know. My view is I don't think it's as lackadaisical as, oh yeah, I'm just gonna let everyone know. If there's 1 or 2 people that you work with closely and you have a good relationship with them, sure, you can be like, hey, I'm kind of going through this on-cycle process. I don't know that I want to do it, but I just know that it's ongoing right now. And if I don't go through it, I might lose the opportunity later on to do it. So, I'm just gonna try my hand at 1 or 2 things. I'd appreciate it if you would just kind of keep it, or I will. None of the deadlines or nothing will sort of be affected. But maybe you do that after you do your initial headhunter conversation, right? There's no reason to front run everything and like, you know what I mean? I think it's fine to keep things a little close to the vest until there's truly affecting your day-to-day schedule. And it's truly affecting your quality of work or something. So yeah, I mean, like, there's no right answer. If you want to go do it, I would just be careful, right? Because imagine then you have to work at that place for 2 more years. And it's sort of like, that movie Dead Men Walking, right? It's like, well, what do you do now, right? So I would just be careful. I don't know. Like there's no right answer. Do what you want to do. But my suggestion would be, if you develop good relations with one or two people and kind of they can help you out, great. But there's no reason to kind of go about it like just like talking to everyone about it.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks. So
Yeah, of
once
course.
I
You're
start
welcome.
bringing too many dentist appointments, I'll move to like the doctor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a serious surgery I got going on. I think, yeah, no problem. Okay. So I can take one more question. I think, John, I'll take your question. What's up?
Good evening. Just wanted to say thank you also
Yeah.
for doing this. My question is also about networking. So you talked a lot about reaching out and just sending all those emails, but once say you actually do make that connection, I feel that the question I have is, my bad. What's the best way to go about maintaining that connection? Because if you just reach out once, if you guys have like one chat, and then like 6 months later, you try and reach out again for like a job or something, like they might have forgotten who you are. So how would you best say we go about maintaining that relationship or network with the person? Because it's a relationship in a sense from what you was describing. So how do we maintain that without coming off as like not annoying, but like, these people have stuff to do and they don't have time to be talking to, college kids all day. So how do we go about maintaining that?
Yeah, it's a good question, John. I think it's a really good question. I think a lot of people kind of botch this in one of two ways, right? One way is you build a great connection and then you go back 6 months later with someone and they're like, I don't remember our connection. You sort of lose that opportunity. The first point. The second point is you build an okay connection and then you're just like pasturing them all the time and it's sort of not the right fit. So my suggestion, advice on this is, one is, you're not going to do this for 100. Like the reason why I want you to have 25 networking calls is you're going to get 5 to 7 good relationships out of them. Like not every 25 of them are you going to be jiving with and kind of, having sort of great conversations with. So my suggestion here would be, number one, have follow up during a conversation, be engaged. So it starts in the conversation, right? My opinion of John or my opinion of Aiden or Jack or Tushar or Kobe is informed by, did I have a good conversation with someone, right? So that's the first thing. So during the meeting, be prepared. So your follow-up 6 months later actually starts in the meeting itself. So go into the meeting, be prepared with a good set of questions, ask follow-ups, be an engaged listener. What I mean, I say this all the time. The number one thing people screw up in networking calls is they have a list of questions and they just go through, oh, Kaushik, tell me about the time, tell me about when you were at GS, tell me about the, this, and then I give an answer and then they're like, oh, okay, cool. Then tell me about this. And I'm like, well, I just told you a cool deal I worked on. It would be really nice if you actually like asked me a follow-up on that deal, or at least like had a conversation. So it doesn't feel like I'm like talking to like Barbara Walters or something, right? When I'm just like giving all these answers and like, I'm just getting more questions in the back, right? So again, figure out what works for you. And this is what I mean by practice makes perfect. But generally I think like, follow up in the meeting. Okay, so that's the thing. And some of you guys have heard this stuff before, but then have a good meeting. And then towards the end, like, acknowledge that they've helped you. I really appreciate the time that you've taken out to give me this advice. I will be sure to take up your advice around networking, around blah, and then around blah, and then say, I would love to sort of, I think this is some of the best advice I've received. I would love to stay in touch with you as I go through my recruiting process and give you periodic updates. And, just because I think, this has been so helpful to me. So you kind of like make them think like, you know what I mean? Like they probably have been helpful. They have given you 15, 20 minutes of their time and it's probably been helpful. So bring them on your team, right? Say, hey, I would love to keep you in touch in the process. And, and just because it's been so helpful, and they're not going to say no to that. They're not going to say, oh no, don't email me or don't give me updates. And then maybe you could say at the end, hey, if there's anyone else in the Maryland team or whatever team, Credit Suisse team that I should meet, just let me know. Or, if anyone else comes to mind, I'm happy to sort of do this or whatever. And so you leave it there. You don't pester them about, can you give me 5 names I want to reach with or something like that, right? So I think you do that. And then immediately within 10 minutes of talking to someone, this is the other thing. People go to these networking events and I will still be shocked, whether it's the MBA level or the undergrad level, and not me, anyone, all of my peers. If we meet 90 people, we will get only LinkedIn messages or emails. Not that everyone needs to start LinkedIn messaging everyone now, but my point is like from 50% of the audience or 40% of the audience, that to me is mind boggling, because if you can add them right after the session, send them a message, that immediately turns a cold connection into a warm connection because you've already connected with someone, you've already messaged them, whatever. So it boggles my mind that someone would take an hour out of their day, 2 hours out of their day, go to a firm event and then doesn't add them on LinkedIn or doesn't send them a thank you note after the session. To me, it's like, what are you doing? We just wasted 2 hours of your life by going to that session, right? So my point is follow up with people. So if someone spent 15, 20 minutes and imagine the work that took in to you setting up that conversation to begin with, follow up within 10 minutes, even in fact, have a follow-up email ready so you can customize it based on the conversation. And within, I mean, don't do it within a minute because then it seems like you've just like cranked it out, but do it within 15 minutes and say, I really appreciate advice around X, Y, and Z. So for that reason, try not to schedule a networking call right after class or right before class or something, because you're not going to have time to get ready, nor will you have time to follow up after the meeting. If it goes over 5 minutes and you're rushing around or whatever, right? So just kind of be a little thoughtful about how you guys think about your scheduling. Obviously you're scheduling at the whim of the person. Then take notes during that meeting, right? Like, oh, this person talked about healthcare investing trends that are going on or COVID impact or whatever. And so take notes about that. And then put an alert up on your computer about anything that's related to healthcare. And so as deals come up, every 3 weeks, scan those deals, read it and see what's going on. And then say, hey, I just saw these couple deals come across the wire. I'm sure you're tracking them, but I thought it was interesting because we talked about this particular trend that we're seeing in healthcare. And now X, Y, and Z companies are going on. That's a great way to keep in touch with people where you sort of are adding value to them. You're not just going out there and being like, oh, it's me again. You're kind of adding value to them. And then the other great way to follow up with people is if you have any professional changes, right? So if you get an internship, like between when you talk to them and the recruiting process, you say, hey, just wanted to update you. Your advice was super helpful. I ended up landing an internship at X, Y, and Z firm. I'm super excited about it. That said, I'm still interested in Evercore, as whatever. So I think, you can kind of update them that way, right? So that is the life cycle of maintaining a relationship. To me, it starts with the actual preparation for the interview, or sorry, the informational, and leads up to like 6 months afterwards. And keep yourself organized, right? So like I said earlier, the first place you're going to go to get an internship or a full-time offer after your junior year summer is the people you network with your sophomore year before your internship process, right? Or whatever the case is, or the plus 1 year. So it's easier to go and talk to people at that point when you already have an existing relationship with them. So again, don't expect to be like best friends with every person you speak to, but at the same time, figure out what's working for you, figure out what's working for them, and then go about it that way. So, okay, I want to be cognizant. Thank you, Braden. I appreciate that. I think, look, I love coming back to Maryland. I want to be cognizant of your time as well. I'm actually supposed to be speaking at North Carolina tonight. I don't think we have a basketball live rivalry anymore, but I'll be sure to bring it up when I speak at Duke or something. But I think, I also want to be, there are sessions starting in like 15 minutes, but feel like the purpose of the session, right? These guys are doing a fantastic job. The team here, Braden and Zach and Ethan and on all these teams. I said, I'll start at the beginning. The number one gripe or number one sort of issue I get with non-target students complaining to me about is like, oh, not enough firms come on campus. It is what it is. That's life. You have the ability to change where you can network and recruit with LinkedIn, with Finect and Elevate, with some of these platforms. You get this incredible opportunity. Like last month, we had on 15 investment bankers. And I was still shocked at how many students, we had 600 people or something at the session. And like, I talked to our bankers afterwards, and I think about 20% of them added them on LinkedIn or what. I'm like, this is a great opportunity. Someone just came and spoke to you and gave an hour of their time. You should be, my point is, you have enough resources today's world. This is not like 20 years ago when you don't know how to reach someone. Just leverage the resources you have. Be okay to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid of rejection. It's a career. It's not a sprint. Like all of your peers I will say this because I've been in your shoes. We see about, like I said, 10 or 20,000 students every single year and growing that are going through this. Not everybody ends up at Blackstone. Like that's not life. Yeah, and it's not even it's not what you want. So first step, start with where you want. Number two, go after those goals, but it's a journey, right? So like your career is a 40-year journey or 50-year journey. And so do the things that over your career that you enjoy doing, that you're uniquely good at, and that is actually interesting to you and drives impact for yourself. That's the goal in your career. It's not to, and maybe that impact for you is I just want to make the most money. That's fine too. But my point is like, make sure you understand and acknowledge how you define impact, how you define interest, and go do something you're really good at. And to me, impact and career success starts local. So you getting involved with Smith's Finance Group and things like that is where it really starts, such that if you can show me you're a leader on campus, guess what? I think you can be a leader in the professional world, right? So your professional development starts with whatever school you go to, whatever ecosystem you're at, and becoming excellent at that, excelling at that, and that will automatically open up opportunities for everything that you want to get into. And have a goal. Like, you don't have to do this the first thing you do out of college, but you know, the crazy thing about life, guys, is once you do it and once you have something, you don't want it anymore, right? So I think just make sure you enjoy the journey and you get there, and such that you go there and you actually want to spend 4 years of your career there, right? You just want to go there and update your LinkedIn, and now you're like, well, I hate this job, I want to quit, right? So I think that's not the goal, right, of what we're trying to do. So you know, that's why it's so important to the introspection, exploration. And obviously, you know, these careers are competitive, so get yourself in the shoes to kind of be ready there. Okay, I need to get some water, and I need to get ready for the next thing. But if there's nothing else, I hope this has been helpful to everyone. You know, appreciate you guys all staying late and kind of staying a few minutes extra. And yeah, like, you know, let's have excellent, proud alumni of UMD that we can all be proud of. And you can be proud of yourself, right? In terms of the things that you do and become the best at. And on that note, I will leave you. And yeah, definitely stay engaged. Like I said, we have sessions almost every other week on Elevate. When my goal is to bring on all these professionals and really take advantage if it's interesting to you. Okay. Best of luck, guys. Thank you, Braden and Ethan and team and Zach for organizing this. Best of luck, guys. And maybe we'll make the tournament next year. Okay. So we'll hope for that. All right. So bye-bye, everyone. See you guys.